My name is John Paul, once again, a teacher of entrepreneurship education. I am here yet for another session. We are going to be discussing more about business documents because we are still on our topic. And of course, our topic is the preparation of business documents. Preparation of business documents. Of course, they are very important in business organizations because they try to make the business owners, the shareholders, get to understand whether the profits are being made, whether the profits are being generated, or the losses have been incurred in a given period of time, in a given trading period. Therefore, with these documents, the business can be able to know its financial stand as regards the dates, as regards the liabilities, as regards the assets of that particular business. Last time we met, we are looking at a letter of the inquiry. The letter of the inquiry. It was a document that was talked about during that session. And of course, I want to make a recap of what we were looking at as far as the letter of the inquiry is all about. Of course, I was telling you to inquire means to ask. And of course, when you are asking to know what you don't know. Of course, if you know something, you cannot ask about it. Of course, you always asking about what you don't know. And we are saying that it is issued by the buyer, by the purchaser, by the customer, to the supplier, to the organization, to the business, to the seller of a given commodity that the business would wish to purchase, that the business would wish to buy, that the business would wish to get into its organization, that the business would like to have. And for that matter, the business cannot have it, if at all it doesn't know more about it. As regards the prices, as regards the nature, as regards the quality, as regards the quantity available for sale, as regards the terms and conditions of purchase, as regards the discounts offered by the supplier, if any. We normally say if any, because not all businesses, not all suppliers offer discounts. Of course, if it offers, it will have to respond. There are very many questions, including the prices of that particular commodity, that the buyer would like to know before placing an order. Of course, you place an order after understanding majority of the queries. Then on that very document, we looked at its designing and we said, why do we design documents? Because the business is preparing itself to handle the customers, to handle the suppliers, to handle any client. For that matter, you have to be prepared that in case a client enters in, automatically you know how to do, you know what to do. Then we looked at its preparation. That is in case now the client comes, and after the client has come, now you have to present a document to him, proving that a transaction, proving that a deal has been struck. And of course, you have to do it for purposes of keeping on remembering that at one time T, a given transaction took place, a given transaction happened. For that matter, therefore, you have to prepare a document, and we said all business documents are prepared in duplicate. Why do we prepare them in duplicate? Because the original is sent away, is given out, and the duplicate or the carbon copy remains with the business for reference purposes, for remembrance. Thank you very much, because we are together. Without wasting time, of course, we have to go straight on the point. But what we need to understand is, I told you for queries, you can go to my email, send me a message. Tell me some areas of improvement. You can comment on my lesson. You can ask a question, because what I know, we are together. And I said, my email is johnpaul@gmail.com. This is my email address, so you can use it for more clarification, for more information. Now today, let's be focused now, because that has been a recap of what we studied. That has been a review of the document we talked about. Now we come to another document. What we should understand is that when you ask, you are responded to. When you ask, you are responded to. What do I mean? Let me give you an example. That during debates, a member would put up the hand and ask the chairperson, inquire from the chairperson, I would like to know whether X, Y, Z, whether B, C, D, whether this and that is supposed to be done the way it is being done. And then the member would sit. After the member has seated, then the person concerned would respond. And the response would come after the inquiry. And the other member would get to know, would come to understand his or her query, would come to understand his or her question. For that matter, in business, people ask and they responded. You may ask yourself, is it only inquiries using documents or letters, or you can inquire using a telephone, you can inquire using a computer, internet? Very true, you can inquire using anything. But we're looking at an assumption where the inquiry, where the document that is going to be used leaves behind a proof. Because if you call me, I would like to know the prices of goods or services, and you respond to me on phone. The phone, you are using it to respond to me, will enable me get the response. But the response may not be permanent. Therefore, it will not leave out any reference. I will not use that very response on phone after a given period of time. I need a proof. I need to document this. I need to keep this information until it is needed. That's why we said these documents must be prepared in a duplicate. You keep the original, you can pin them somewhere, like when I was looking at a receipt. Like when you are paying a license and you have a shop, you pin the document somewhere so that everybody comes looks at it. But what if you pay your license on phone? How will people know that you paid? So that's why these documents are very, very, very important. Therefore, you are going to inquire about the prices. You are going to inquire about the terms and conditions. You are going to inquire about very many things. Therefore, in writing, and the response should be in writing. The response should be in writing. For purposes of referring to them after given a period of time. Now the letter of inquiry inquired. We are now basing on assumption, ladies and gentlemen, that after making that inquiry, the seller, the supplier understood your queries, your inquiries, and now the person in charge is going to respond to your inquiries. Which document is this person going to use to respond to your inquiries? This document is none other than the letter of quotation. The letter of quotation. The letter of quotation. The letter of quotation. Therefore, this document, this document we are calling a letter of quotation, is a letter or a document that is issued or sent by the supplier or the seller to the customer, to the buyer, in response to the letter of inquiry. In response to the letter of inquiry. In other words, now the seller has understood all the questions that you raised, and now the seller is trying to respond to them. So that you may know what is happening in the business and place orders and start buying and decide to buy if you are convinced. If you are convinced. Therefore, this document is sent by the supplier to the seller in response to the letter of inquiry. In other words, it is answering the questions that you raised. Therefore, we call it a document that is issued or sent by the seller, call him or her the supplier. Where is the supplier sending the document? To the buyer or the business customer to respond to the letter of inquiry or in response to the letter of inquiry. In response to the letter of inquiry. Because now, when you ask, as I told you, you have to be answered. And therefore, this document is answering these questions. It is responding. It is giving a feedback. Because we know what we call communication. The conveyance of messages, documents, from one person, from one party to another party, to another person. When the information sent is responded to, we shall say that there has been an effective communication. Because these documents, you see, They are forms of written communication. We are communicating in writing. Why do we communicate in writing? Because written communication encourages reference. The information is kept for long until it is needed again. We refer to the written communication. Therefore, the feedback must be got. You send information in writing, asking about something, and automatically you have to be responded to. You have to be given the feedback, which is either positive or negative. We don't mind about the nature of the feedback. What we mind about is, has the feedback been made? Has the letter been responded to? Whether it has been responded to negatively or positively, there is no problem, because what is important is the buyer getting to know what he or she never knew. That's why we're saying that a quotation becomes a document that is sent by the seller to the buyer to respond to the letter of inquiry, to respond to the queries, to respond to the concerns of the other buyer. So the buyer understands. Whether the understanding is on his side or not, the important of this is that he will have understood or she will have understood. That is the letter of quotation. Majority of you people have ever heard of the quotation. The quotation I'm talking about, please don't confuse it with the quotation in English language. Because in English language, you quote a word when it is borrowed in the phrase you have written. But for us here, the quotation is not the open quotes and closed quotes. We are not meaning those quotes. A quotation in terms of a document, not in terms of a sign. Don't get confused, because some people may be asking themselves, but this gentleman is talking of a quotation. We learned quotation in English. Yes, that was a quotation mark in English language, especially when you're using the borrowed words. But this is a quotation document which answers the letter of the inquiry, which responds to the letter of the inquiry. Ladies and gentlemen, I may use very many words to explain one thing and take much of your time. But don't get tired of this, because I'm talking to very many people and talking to each person at a time, not at a go. I must make sure that that gentleman, that gentlewoman gets to understand what I'm trying to mean. Thank you very much. And indeed, thank you very much. For this matter, we're going to look at the designing of this document and the preparation of this document. Remember, these documents are very many. We have got major documents and minor documents. And I began with major documents. I may leave out the minor documents, but these documents are very many as 40. But we may look at around 10 or 15 of them, which are major. We got something else. Don't get tired of these documents, because they are the foundations of business management. We are not looking at only passing at UNEB. You get an A for the case of Uganda, getting distinctions in all the papers. We are looking at understanding and the applicability of these documents in real business life, in real business management, in practical business. Not only looking at them in terms of passing at advanced level, but in terms of applying them practically, directly in business, so that you may know that the business is moving in this direction. This is what happened. Why did it happen? This is how it was responded to. Why was it responded to? Because now, if the letter of inquiry is responded to using the letter of quotation, it means you will know who your supplier is, because you may not write this letter of inquiry to only one supplier. You write to very many suppliers. And all of them shall respond to you in different ways, in different days, in different hours, in different minutes, in different nights. And you have to understand them differently. And you choose one who shall be your supplier, depending on how this supplier shall have responded to you. That's why I'm saying that the words I may speak much, but we need to understand this. I'm talking to business people who are already in business, who are planning to start businesses. And at the same time, I'm talking to students who are in senior 5. And in senior 6, they sit for UNEB, that is Uganda National Examinations Board. And they will be looking for what we call Uganda Advanced Certificate of Education, USCE. Uganda Advanced Certificate of Education. Therefore, I'm talking to two people, one at a time, a student, a business person. Is it okay? Are we moving on the same pace? Therefore, after having understood a letter of quotation by definition and by its meaning that it responds to the letter of the inquiry, ni gisubizo ubaza umuntu akagusubiramo. And therefore, we have to ensure that people out there understand. Now we are going to pose a question and we see how this letter responds. Now, as I told you the other time, that the person I'm talking to is a student and is a business person. And on the side of the business person, the business person is the one who buys and sells. The one who buys and sells. And as I am talking right now, I'm talking to a seller. At the same time, I'm talking at the buyer. The one I'm talking to, seller, buyer. How and why? It means that you buy, you stand, you buy, and you sell. When you are in the other coin, another side of the buyer, you write an inquiry. That is if at all you are the one buying. And the seller will respond. Now we are on the side of the seller now. It means you are the one who is selling, you are the one who was inquired about. You are the one who received the letter of inquiry. And you are the one responding. That's what I'm saying. When you are a buyer, be a buyer. When you're a seller, be a seller. A buyer is inquiring, and now a seller is responding. The other time I was a buyer who wrote a letter of inquiry. Now today I'm a seller who is responding to the letter of inquiry sent by the other person who was not me. I'm not the one now. Today, I'm not the one who wrote the letter of inquiry. But I'm the one who received the letter of inquiry. Is it okay? So now, after having got that, we're going to look at a question. This question is going to be set by the seller. And the seller is responding to the letter of inquiry. Is it okay? Thank you very much. So I'm going to pose a question. And the question today, because I'm a seller, the question goes. You intend, stroke you plan, stroke you are in contention. Any. Is it okay? You are in the process. All those. You are in the process. Of starting a supermarket. In your village town. Some may ask himself, what is the meaning of a village town? Now, there are some things we don't understand properly, but when you are supposed to understand them. Okay, this is a borrowed language, which we may not change, but those centers in villages, they normally call them trading centers. Then those ones which have emerged to be bigger than those ones, they call them towns. To an extent of calling them town councils, municipalities, cities. But what I want to tell everybody out there is that any town, any center that is involved, that is commercial, it is involved in purchasing and selling of goods, receiving and giving out of money. They are all trading centers. Because even a city is a trading center. The one we call a town is a trading center because it is involving, it is commercial. So when I say a village town, I mean that town you call a trading center. So that's why you intend, you are in the process of starting a supermarket now. You want to start a supermarket. And you are in the process. You haven't started it, but you are in it, and you need to have the documents on your disposal so that you may start well. Like for this case, in case customers send for you inquiries, you should be having those quotation books where you will open and you write and you send them. Then the question comes, design or draft a quotation letter to respond to the customer inquiries. This one becomes our question. So, why do you need to design? I said you need to have with a document awaiting for the client. Awaiting for? So, after writing this, we are going to see how we design a quotation. The first thing we said is to have the opening statement, is to have the heading, is to have the what? The heading. So we shall have and say, we shall have our heading written like this. The letter of inquiry to be used in. Now, the other time I said that when we are designing or preparing these documents, we have to know that we should be having the name of our business. We cannot write these documents when we don't have the names of business. Because I said you cannot start a business, you cannot be in contention of starting a business, you cannot be in the process of starting a business when you don't even know the name. That's why I said you cannot produce your child and then you request the neighbor to give him or her a name. So this business, which is a supermarket, should be having the name. And therefore, I can say to be used in Kangali supermarket. You underline. Then someone is going to ask himself or herself, why Kangali? Yes, Kangali is the name of my supermarket. But remember, there are very many supermarkets in the village, in the town, in the city. Why do I give mine Kangali? To differentiate it from other supermarkets in the town. To create a difference. Because you cannot have a supermarket in the name of another supermarket in the same town. Even in the country, by the way. Unless the business you are dealing in are not registered. The businesses are not. But if they are just with the register of companies, for example, in Uganda, with Uganda Registration Service Bureau, there is not any name that appears twice. There must be a difference in this way or the other.